A Fox News alert back to our top story. Alexander Van Zwan, a 33-year-old London-based attorney who worked with the Trump campaign officials Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, has become the first person sentenced in Robert Mueller's investigation today after pleading guilty to lying to investigators and destroying evidence. He received 30 days in jail, $20,000 fine. This comes amid newly released court filings showing Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein specifically authorized the special counsel to look at former Trump campaign manager Manafort as part of his Russia investigation, including payments to Manafort from Ukraine before the campaign even began, years before. Manafort has filed a lawsuit to have charges against him dropped, claiming the scope of Robert Mueller's probe is now too broad. He's not charged with anything relating to what they said they were looking for, Russian collusion in the Trump campaign. Congressman?
Well, I do have an issue with that personally, just because I think it is a little bit broad. A lot of it's based on that dossier, which, you know, we read the memos, if you will, and I think that's troubling, and I think it's troubling for a lot of folks that are out there. At the same time, I think it needs to run its course.
Yeah, you know, part of the conversation now is another investigation, which is going to look into how that anti-Trump dossier was used to obtain warrants to look at a former campaign member, Carter Page. So you do have a widening now even of the scope of, well, did they do the right thing along the way?
When you speak with Congressman Trey Gowdy, who read what the what they used basically to get the warrants, the FISA warrant, the application, and the first thing they led with was the dossier. So, according to Trey, I didn't see it.
When are we going to get to see that application, by the way?
I don't know. I don't know who would make that decision.
Have you seen it?
No, I have not. There's only I've seen the memos, of course.
Yes,
right.
But there
We've
are
all
only,
seen those.
Chairman Nunes, which smartly actually put our best lawyers to see it. He could only have a couple of folks do it under the deal, and he put our best lawyers up front to be able to see that, who understand the actual application. So, and according to them, that was the first thing they used was the dossier, and that's very troubling for
to Kennedy's point, though. Should we be able to see some of that, even if it's redacted, as a wider public? Just to know what a secret court looked at in terms of spying on an American? I think scooped up in that?
Look, I think that there are some issues with the FISA court, and we need to make sure that there aren't any further abuses, of course, to American
Well,
citizens.
you can preach to Sister Kennedy on that.
Would not have been helpful in order to rein that in when Section 702 had...
Now, they're a little different.
I understand that, but any time we can constrain the surveillance state in this country, we should absolutely take that opportunity. And I think it was a very disingenuous conversation that Congress had with the public at that time when the content of the memos was known to the person who was pushing for.
That's correct, but we have to be careful
less
because they are different. And 702, is used. It's been one of the best tools against terrorism in the world. So I understand what you're saying, and I have an issue with that too. But we have to make sure that you don't throw out everything just based on potential abuses of a different kind.
Lisa, let's talk about where we are with Van der Zwaan today and the sentencing and what this means for the total picture in Robert Mueller's investigation.
Well, I think that's tough to know, right? Because we don't exactly know what Mueller has been looking at specifically and what he's looking at currently. But I do think to Paul Manafort's concern and his accusation that this has been, way too broad, I think that's a concern that a lot of people should share. Just look at some of the charges that have been brought against Manafort. For instance, failing to register as a foreign agent. That is something that very rarely gets enforced. And it's also something that, Chairman Grassley has said we should be reforming because we've seen people like Fusion GPS also be accused of failing to register as a foreign agent of Russia. And if we're worried about other countries influencing the United States, we should probably be concerned about Americans lobbying on their behalf. But more broadly, I do think there's a concern that this, we're looking at things that happened before the election, and the entire premise of the investigation was supposed to be on Russian collusion during the campaign.
Because here we are, we're looking at this, and what if Hillary Clinton were under investigation? What would John Podesta's past look like if you were going a decade into John and Tony Podesta's past?
Not very good. It's a good point. And look, the Mueller investigation, so far, as far as we know, has come up with absolutely nothing that is of any relevance to whether or not Russia colluded. It's such a weird word to use, right? Colluded with the Trump campaign. They really got to come up with a better word, because I don't think it really
Russia
means
worked
much.
against all of us, because now we're
sure.
all going
And you know what? In all of this, Harris, guess who wins?
But I don't think you needed an investigation.
One of the things
to prove
Russia has had a wildly successful campaign, right? Because of all this Russia, and its complete focus by Democrats and some Republicans, of course, on Russia. Russia's actually been wildly successful.
Well, Vladimir Putin, we've sadly sort of played right into his hands, and both parties have done this. Both parties have.
All right. Yeah. We got to move on. But we'll come back to something equally as interesting. The president and the press. Will he or won't he attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner? Didn't we ask this last year?
Yes, we did.
Well, there's a new battle erupting today, and a new poll shows even more people say the media report fake news. What say you? And should she stay or should she go? There are a lot of questions here. The second in command at the DNC is refusing to say if he wants Hillary Clinton to campaign for Democrats.
I do.
What it means for the party in the midterms next.
This is a Fox News alert. President Trump hardly alone in thinking media outlets spread fake news. More than 3 in 4 Americans, 77%, say they believe that major traditional television and newspaper media outlets report fake news. That's according to a new Monmouth University poll. It marks a sharp increase in distrust of those news organizations from just a year ago, when 63% said they were concerned about the spread of misinformation. Among those, 31% said they believe those media outlets spread fake news regularly. 46% said it happens occasionally. The poll also finds that a large majority, 86%, believe that online news websites report fake news, which is up slightly from 80 about a year ago. However, the number who say online news sources regularly report fake news, that's up by 11 points. Just 25% say the term fake news applies only to stories where the facts are wrong. Most Americans, 65%, say fake news also applies to how news outlets make editorial decisions about what they choose to report. So, Harris, as a journalist, what does this say to you about the confidence Americans have in the news they're consuming?
So what I think is interesting about all that is to drill it down to that last line that you said about the fact that now it's not just making mistakes. People are looking at how the news is reported editorially. And I think that puts us in a new space. I think online websites.
Sometimes there are people in power who don't like the content of the story, who will dismiss it just for the fact that they don't like it, or that it's so heavily editorialized. So it is incumbent upon us, isn't it, as consumers, to find sources that we can trust and also vary our sources so we're not just reading the same thing.
It's also incumbent upon us as journalists. When I see something and I know it's not right, like you getting something sent to you or tweeted, I try to address that. I go looking for the facts and might put out a tweet. And my husband says that makes me like kind of wonky and corny. But I feel like it's part of my job now to debunk when I can. I mean, I can't possibly address everything. But, you know, if I see something and it seems egregious and I have some facts to meet that, I try to quote tweet that and put that out. And hopefully people will spread that too.
You know,
but journalism,
journalism used to be about primary sources and should still always be about primary sources. Too often you're getting the secondary information.
But it shouldn't be activism, and that's the problem. Look at the way some of these gun control walkouts in high schools across the country were covered. I mean, the media, those were the headlines across the country. Nowhere do you ever see you know, pro-life rallies getting covered or any sort of coverage of the other side. So, I mean, and you'll go back to, remember, President Trump did an interview with David Muir, and it was right before the March for Life rally. And he called him out, and he said, you're not going to cover it. And he was completely stunned because he was asking about the Women's March and completely forgot the fact that March for Life was that week.
Wow. There's definitely some bias out there, and it's important for everyone to be aware of it. Meanwhile, another big story we're watching here, Politico reporting that President Trump's decision on whether or not to attend this year's White House Correspondents' Dinner is getting a little more complicated here. The president skipped last year's dinner following numerous battles with various news organizations, and if he attends this month's White House Correspondents Association dinner, he will be on stage as journalists from publications and networks that he routinely calls fake news are honored with awards. One of those news outlets, CNN, in the president's crosshairs today. Again, the president tweeting out Check out the fact that you can't get a job at ratings challenge CNN unless you state that you are totally anti-Trump. Little Jeff Zucker.
Oh, no. Really?
I think he should go.
He went there. Little Jeff Zucker, whose job is in jeopardy, is not having much fun lately. They should clean up and strengthen CNN and get back to honest reporting. But the network firing back, tweeting, once again, false. The personal political beliefs of CNN's employees are of no interest to us. Their pursuit of the truth is our only concern. Also, Jeff's last name is spelled Zucker. Those are the facts. Hashtag facts first.
I think he should go.
Which one?
I think the president should attend. I think some of the problems with CNN and other networks is they do react to that, and they overreact to it, and then it makes them look bad, right? So I was on.
Well,
one
they
show.
don't call it the Nerd Prom for nothing. I mean, it's a bunch of journalists giving a bunch of journalists awards.
But the president's funny. The president he could get there and go there and make some jokes at their expense. I think
he's very funny.
He showed that at the Gridiron dinner, and I think people would love it. And I think if you do turn it into a roast and you roast each other, that's the people in the room.
And we need to calm down as a nation.
We gotta go. We gotta go. Lisa says no.
Why? I don't think he should, because remember what he did last year, and he had that rally in Pennsylvania. I think that's what he should do, and I think that sent such a strong message, because he said, "I'm here with you, the voters who elected me." Meanwhile, these, elitist media types are back in Washington,
Hollywood
D.C.
stars.
I think he should go out to Wisconsin, hold a rally there, just like he did. On the exact same night.
I was fine last year. This year looks like you're running away and avoiding something.
I think
he's strong enough. I think he's confident enough. He can actually go in that room, face people, stare them down, and he can make a memorable night.
I mean, he could still get the political advantage.
It would be way more fun for us, right?
But
actually, kidding me? The energy in that room, the president facing off against the press in the octagon, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think two things, Congressman, and I think you'll laugh at this. So 2 years ago, do you remember he went and Barack Obama, our former president, was kind of picking on him. So he's gone even when it hasn't been in favor of him.
Yeah.
But this he really could have some fun with. And he could also hold a little news conference, a technical news conference, which is something that he hasn't done in a while. Of course, he gives us plenty of press availability. But wouldn't that be interesting?
What if he did that on the dais?
What if he did and made us all actually do our jobs in that room? That could be really.
Well, he also might be able.
When people are
in that moment, right between your yummy salad with the goat cheese and an extra slice of bread.
All right, I might actually. You're making me want to go.
I think you should go. You should go.
Because we're hungry.
Mr. President, you should go.
All right, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe's wife, Jill McCabe, is telling her side of the story after her husband was fired. Why she says people have the wrong idea about her family and who she blames for that. That's next.